this border war. Fans called it Moonshine Throwdown. I think that's the best rivalry name, an unofficial name, but the best rivalry name I've come across.
Yeah, unofficial that should become official soon enough.
Embrace it.
5 receivers at Duncan's disposal. Duncan stepping up. Hit! Ball is loose!
Big ball here.
Marshall thinks they have it, and the Herd do!
Here's the kickoff from Amaretto Curry to the Hilltoppers, and we are underway, and a fake reverse on the kick return. And here comes Townsend down the left sideline. What a way to start it for Western Kentucky on the road, and it is an opening touchdown return, and just like that, the Hilltoppers strike first.
Justin Rohrwasser to try to win it for Marshall from 53 yards out. It's got the leg. It is good! And the perfect season continues for Justin Rohrwasser.
Goes for 2.
Going for the win.
Western Kentucky going for the victory. Rolling to his right, quick strike, and they did it! Western Kentucky has ended the perfect season into the hands of Willie McNeil. A shocker here in West Virginia, and it is over for Marshall. They end the regular season
11-1. Welcome back to the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Trace is here with me. Steven's going to be joining us in a little bit. The season is finally here, and man sakes alive, week 1 did not disappoint for Western Kentucky and for Marshall. The scoreboard, shall we say, was lit. Points aplenty for both of these teams. I would think that both Marshall and Western Kentucky's fan bases are pleasantly surprised at the offensive outpouring that they saw from both of their teams. A lot of change circling around both of these teams on the offensive side of the ball, not so much from a personnel standpoint for Marshall, but more so a coaching philosophy standpoint. And it was just a lot of personnel changing for Western Kentucky. And we'll get into all that, but right now Trace is with me. So we're going to start things off with this week 1 recap for Marshall traveling up to Annapolis, Maryland to take on the U.S. Naval Academy. Right off the bat, Trace, I was lucky enough to be able to watch the game on TV. I didn't have to work today, so I got to watch it. The crowd support was great. It was nice to see a packed house. There was a big contingency of Marshall fans. They traveled, and you can tell that they were excited to have a new head coach, to have a new coaching staff. They were buying into the buzz of the offseason and what the Herd was, quote, unquote, supposed to look like. And man, they were as advertised. That's what you got to say. They were as advertised. Now, there's some weird anomalies and stats that we'll talk about that kind of make you scratch your head and go, really? They scored that many points and this didn't happen, or this did happen and we didn't expect that at all. So here's the quick rundown, Trace. It's a 49-7 drubbing of the U.S. Naval Academy for the Herd. Complete and utter domination by Marshall. But there's 4 big indicators we talked about: total yardage, time of possession, first downs, and turnovers are one of those games where you might think this would be a completely different outcome, or at least a little bit more competitive. Total yardage, Marshall wins the battle 464-398, so not a huge edge for the Herd. Time of possession, utterly dominated by Navy. Utterly dominated. 41 minutes, 19 seconds for Navy, just 18 minutes and 41 seconds for the Herd. First downs were pretty much even, 23 for Marshall, 24 for Navy. Turnovers, even Navy won the turnover battle. 4 turnovers for Marshall, but just 1 lost fumble. 4 fumbles, but only 1 lost. And then 2 turnovers for Navy. So I guess Navy won the overall number, but the Herd won the actual turnover battle. They only turned it over once, whereas Navy turned it over twice. So here's the things that stick out to me, Trace. The Herd scored 49 points in less than 19 minutes. So you got to think, wow, that's some explosiveness right there. 6 rushing touchdowns for the Herd, which nobody saw coming today at all. Grant Wells goes for over 3 bills and does not throw a touchdown pass, but has 2 interceptions. And the Herd still put up almost 50. And this offense that we were wondering what we would see. Trace, it was all gas, all game, except for a little bit there in the middle where the Herd kind of got a little comfortable right before halftime. They were chucking late game long passes up big. And I don't know what your thoughts are on that type of philosophy. I'm sure you're going to tell me. But I've seemed to be on my timeline. It was a little bit of a mixed bag amongst the Herd fan base. Why are we doing this? And, the other people are like, finally, we get this. And, we've been clamoring for it. So before we get into stats, Herd goes up to Annapolis and lays one on Navy. What do you got, Trace?
Well, it certainly wasn't quite what I expected, but it wasn't what I expected in a good way, because I expected, I said 31-17. I expected, a relatively comfortable win, but not like this. I mean, just totally a drubbing, like you said. And there's a lot of the stats are very, very weird in this game. Like, they don't back up what the score ended up being at all. None of it makes any sense. I mean, how can a team have over 41 minutes of game time of possession, and have 7 points? Like, that's nuts to me. And how can you score almost 50 in 18 minutes or whatever it was? Like, it just makes no sense. So, like, in that regard, it was totally a kind of a nuts game. But man, from Marshall's perspective, this was. I mean, you outside of a few little things, you couldn't have had a better first game than this, in my opinion. I mean, on the road at Navy, Navy's a well-respected program. Everybody, across the country respects Navy. Yeah, this isn't the Navy of old. We all know this, but they're still, got a lot of tough guys that are tough as nails. Like, it's nothing to them to play a football game. Like, that's easy for them. I mean, they might not be as good as they used to be, but they're serving a lot bigger purpose in life than just playing football. And, it was a great atmosphere. Fans showed out, and Marshall just took it to them straight from the get-go. Like, they did. First play of the game, 47-yard play to Talik Keaton. And it's like, at that point, the trend was set. The pace was set of what it was going to be like. And it was really exciting to see the offense play with tempo. That's something that fans have been waiting to see for a while, and you can't do it all the time, but that's a big reason why Marshall was able to score as many as they did in not a whole lot of possession time, because they scored so quickly on, a few of those drives. And, it was a really, really good game. I mean, that's just, there's no other way around it. As far as the philosophy there towards the end, when they were up big and they kept throwing the ball, initial thoughts might be, okay, maybe run a little bit more, but then I tweeted it, and I think it's the truth. Fans for years, for a decade, were just hating on Doc for getting up 3 touchdowns, running the ball every other play, just completely trying to sit on the lead. Huff didn't do that. Huff was like, what, it doesn't matter if we're down 30 or up 30, we're not slowing down for anybody, and you got to respect that. And whether it's going to work, whether it works every single game is irrelevant. You don't change your game plan. That shows the aggressive style that he has as a head coach. And it was really impressive to see, because that would not have happened with Doc Holliday, just point blank. I mean, I know it's kind of, unfair to keep bringing up Doc in a negative light, but that would not have happened with Doc. So you gotta love him sticking to his guns and being aggressive, and I think it's going to really pay off this season. This team could really be something pretty good, I think.
Well, you only get one chance to make a first impression, and Charles Huff's not a fool, so they've been talking all this stuff all offseason about what they were going to do. So what other choice do you really have but to come out and try to put on a display like that? And the other point I'll make to the folks that say, well, you really shouldn't be passing up late. You're up big. What do you do? The backups were in. What do you want them to do? I mean, they got to. Do you want these guys? Do you want to put a ball in the gut and not have Luke Zaban try to throw passes? I mean, what if he has to play like meaningful time in a crunch time game? You're gonna wish at some point he'd been throwing meaningful passes. Well, now he is, and what happened? He threw a dart and hit EJ, or what's his name? I forgot. EJ Horton for the only passing touchdown of the game. So, yeah, you're right. It's so weird. You got 49 points. You got all these rushing touchdowns. None of them, by the way, were chunk, long runs. They
No.
were, it was chunk passes that got them down close and then short runs that got them in. It was just, it's such a wild thing. Just such a wild thing.
We're sorry to interrupt you real quick though. Ollie's longest run was 10 yards and he had 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, and he had 59 total yards and 4 touchdowns on the ground. And during the course of the game, that stat was brought up, the 4 touchdowns in the game, and they were talking about it's the first time it's happened since Devin Johnson did it in 2014. And I knew that game because that was against FAU, and he set the single game rushing record. And I knew he had a ridiculous amount of yards. It was 272, by the way. So, and I tweeted that, and Ollie did it on 59 yards, 4 touchdowns. So anyway, Steve is able to join us a little bit earlier. So, Steve, were you able to watch some of the game at least, or were you kind of tied up with family stuff? Because if you watch some of it, I want to get somebody who doesn't wear, not that Trace does, but I want to get somebody that absolutely doesn't wear green glasses, and I want to get a little bit of your take on what you saw the herd look like.
I didn't get to follow along live. I was kind of keeping up on Twitter, just constant refreshes and kind of seeing what was going on score-wise. But, after the game, to kind of piggyback on what Trey said, I think in your former seasons, I don't think y'all scored those 21 fourth-quarter points. I think you sit on that lead, and that final score is 28-7, or maybe even tighter, because if you take the air out of the ball, you lend yourself, playing prevent defense prevent you from winning. So I think that kind of is a shining example of what you said. I think it's absolutely the statement that they should have came out and made in his first game and first victory. So I think it's exciting, bringing in a new coach and seeing kind of instant results and shake up and saying, hey, this is what we've been clamoring for. Ball game number 1, let's go. Big things ahead. So I really, even though I didn't get to see it, I kind of see on paper it looked really nice from the green perspective.
Yeah, and I can tell you now that, of course, this is something we're going to talk about for the entire season as long as this keeps up. Boy, after week 1, if the end of the season in November isn't looking like a real shootout, my Lord, this looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. I hate to put the cart before the horse, but when you tally up, I did the math earlier and I've forgotten the math. But it's like whatever, it adds up to 108 points scored between Marshall and Western Kentucky versus 28 points for the opposition. Whoo, doggies. They may, like Steven likes to say, they may run out of fireworks at the end of the season if these point totals keep up. But Trace, let's talk about individual stats. Grant Wells, I tweeted during the game that at certain point he didn't look very poised at certain points in the game, and I caught some flack for that, as if I was saying, well, they ought to bench Grant Wells, which is not at all what I was saying. He was letting some balls go high, and he was, a couple of stretch there where he got some tip balls that went for interceptions. He just didn't look as poised as I was expecting at times. And I rationalized that by saying, coming in, we knew that Marshall was talented at every position offensively versus the Naval defense. And I expected him to surgically be able to dismantle this offense or to this Navy defense. And to a certain degree, they did that. A lot of guys had chunk plays in it, but he never found the end zone. And, you'll take 50 points every game. And if Wells never throws a touchdown pass all season and throws 2 interceptions a game, you don't care. If you win 49-7 and he ends the season with no touchdown passes and 24 interceptions, you'd be like, first team all conference quarterback, right?
That's right.
But just one of those things. Grant Wells does go 20 for 30, which you got to love that. 333 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 6 carries for 14 yards, 61.5 quarterback rating. Luke Zaban of the Huntington Zabans, which I love saying, comes in relief duty, 1 of 3, 30-yard strike touchdown pass, the only one of the game for the herd. Rasheen Ali comes in I didn't know what to expect from this guy. And he looked really good. 14 carries, 59 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground, did have a fumble, but he recovered his own fumble in a miraculous play. He grabbed out of the midair while he was falling to the ground. Don't know how that happened. Luck of the draw for the herd. Sheldon Evans, 9 carries, 27 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. He also had a fumble, which the herd lost. Through the air, Talik Keaton leads the way, 5 catches for 100 yards. 47-yard long, first play from scrimmage, right out of the gate. The Herd looking strong. 20 yards per average per catch. Corey Gamage also a solid game. 7 catches, 94 yards, 13.4 yards per carry. He did have those 2 tip passes that led directly to interceptions, the second of which led directly to Navy's only touchdown. So you can see immediately how those things can bite you. The Herd staring down a potential shutout if those things don't bounce that way. But still an overall good game by Gamage. Xavier Gaines, 2 catches for 61 yards, 30.5 yards per reception. He also had a fumble that was recovered by the Herd. Ball security, you got to think, is going to be driven into the ground this week for sure, because now teams think, okay, well, we can just cause Marshall a fumble. Shadid Ahmed, 2 catches for 51 yards. And E.J. Horton, 1 catch for 30 yards and the only touchdown. I said it, ball security is going to be a big thing. 4 different players fumble. The fourth, of course, was Grant Wells on a corner blitz. The ball got knocked loose, which the Herd also recovered. They seem to look better and more efficient with tempo. So to that end, I must say congratulations to Tim Cramsey for calling a phenomenal game. It's something that Marshall fans have been clamoring for a long time, and he called a great game. So we can't just throw all the credit to Charles Huff. We can't just throw all the credit to these players. Tim Cramsey's got to get a little bit of the shine. He's up there calling the plays, and it showed. It looked really well. So, Trace, here's the question. What do we know about this Herd offense after one game?
Well, we know it's a totally different looking offense than it has been for the last several years. I mean, the last time they ran any kind of legit serious tempo and it was like a game in, game out thing was like 2013, 2014 with Raheem Cato. I mean, we're talking like, 7-8 years. So they haven't really done this. And like you said, they look more comfortable in tempo. And like Navy just had no answer for it whatsoever. I mean, none the whole game. They couldn't. The only way Marshall was stopped really offensively, which I'll kind of get into with grade later on, but the only way they really were stopped offensively is just when they stopped themselves. I mean, that's really the only. I mean, Navy really didn't stop them. So I mean, that tempo worked like a charm. I mean, you can't. I mean, you can't do it every possession, every game. I mean, if you do, your defense is going to be out there way too much. First of all,
which we saw to a certain extent today.
Which we saw to a certain extent today, partly because of that, partly because of the offense that Navy runs. But, yeah, I mean, the tempo is definitely a big factor moving forward. Teams are going to have to prepare for that. And, and it seems like it's definitely more of a they definitely prefer to throw the ball in that kind of tempo, in which you're kind of like a air raid type deal. I mean, I don't know if it's going to look anything like that or not, but it's definitely is a good –
I don't want to cut you off. We'll be talking air raid here in a little bit. So if you're sticking around to the latter half of the episode, you'll get a key into what that's going to look like.
Well, when you have 6 rushing touchdowns in a game, it's kind of hard.
It's hard to say air raid. Good point. Excellent point. It's not an air raid, but it's also not a ground raid either. It's just how they happen to score. They got down the field through the air, but punched it in the end zone on the ground. Which kind of takes me back to a statement that that I used by Charles Huff in the the season predictions episode, where he said coaches talk about being balanced. You got to be balanced. He said, I believe you got to do what you got to do to win, and that's I think a microcosm of what we saw today. Marshall's pass game got them down the field, and their run game got them into the end zone. That's what they had to do to win, and that's what they did. Yeah. Defensively, Abraham Beauplan leads the way for the Herd, 13 tackles, 4 solo. E.J. Jackson, a great effort today, 12 tackles, 6 solo. Eli Neal, wow. You lightheartedly joke that, we probably won't see anybody with another 4-sack game like we saw Darius Hodge have, And what does Eli Neal do? He comes out and has 3 sacks in the first game. 11 tackles, 5 solo, 3 tackles for loss, and 3 sacks. Holy moly, what a game for Eli Neal. Brian Cavalcante, 9 tackles, 5 solo, 1.5 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. Sam Burton, a guy that was seemingly everywhere. Number 0 seemed like he was in on every play today. Really stood out on the screen for me. and 9 tackles, 3 solo, 2 tackles for loss, and a sack and a half for Sam as well. Interceptions today by Stephen Gilmore and by Keelan Roach. I mean, what a great all-around effort when you talk about our Herd defense total impact play-wise. 13 tackles for loss, 9 quarterback sacks today, 2 interceptions, and they were on the field for 92 plays and over 41 minutes in time of possession. Amazing. Guys were like, oh, the defense looked gassed at the end of the game. They were on the field for 92 plays and 41 minutes. What the heck do you expect? Goodness gracious. I thought they looked phenomenal taking all that in. And you're playing a triple option type team that just is its own animal anyway. I thought they looked phenomenal in this effort. Trace, give me some goodies on this defense because, wow, they were great.
Yeah, the great's the right word. I mean, it's like, and I did see a few of those tweets saying they looked gassed and people were worried about the yards per carry average. I mean, are you kidding me? Like that's what Navy's going to do. They're going to run the ball 98% of the game. I mean, of course they're going to get rushing yards. I mean, who the heck cares? And like every time, Navy ever put a drive together, excluding that one drive that they scored on, which was off of a turnover. Every other drive, they tried to get down there. Marshall thwarted them every single time. Yeah. I mean, the defense made some big plays the whole game. I thought they were very good against triple option. They stayed home almost. I mean, way more times than not. Their eyes were really good, and you can tell that Marshall hadn't played a team like that in a long time. So like. They did a really good job of it, and that you got to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff for getting them ready for a team that runs, one of the most unique offenses in the country. And the defense. I mean, when you're on the field for over 41 out of 60 possible minutes, and you give up 7 points, like that's borderline miraculous. If you're on the field that long, I mean, come on, that's nuts. So they were exceptional.
Just a couple of more points to drive that home. The Herd faced 21 third downs, and they held Navy to 8 of 21 on third down, and another 5 fourth down plays. Now, they were 3 of 5, Navy was on fourth down, but that's 2 more times that is essentially a turnover. They stopped Navy flat. And, I mean, what do you – this is just who they are. That's what they do. I get that, from the surface, you might go, wow, we really got to get that yards per rush down. But 76 run plays out of 92 total plays. I mean, that's tiring for a defense. Let's just touch real quick on special teams, and then we'll get some grades. Andrew Sanders coming out as doing place kicking duties, supplanting Shane Chucci, a guy that they say I heard transferred in from like a JUCO or something like that didn't even have a football team. And now he wins the place kicking duties for the Herd. No field goal attempts today, 7 of 7 on the extra points. Robert Lefevre, 3 punts for 147 yards, 47.7 yard average, ticking his average from last season up about 2 yards. So good job for your boy Lefevre. And then the Herd special teams unit as a whole, a blocked punt and a blocked field goal today. Something special's brewing down there with new special teams coach Jeremy Springer. He's got these guys clicking through 1 week. Trace, let's get into grades here, and then we'll ask the big question, because I know there's a lot of folks that are anxious to hear what you got to say here, and there's some more folks that are anxious to hear what Steven's got to say about Western Kentucky. So let's get these grades going on. What do you got for the quarterbacks for the Herd in week 1, both of them?
Well, I really kind of just put his grade for Grant Wells, but like it kind of fits too for both of them. I said B+. I mean, for the band, you could have said maybe like an A because he actually threw a touchdown. But I mean, it was only 1 completion to a guy that was uncovered. But,
would you like every completion to go for touchdown? Just saying. I'm just asking.
Yes,
okay.
I would. But yeah, no, I said B+. I mean, just looking at Grant Wells' stats a little bit closer, he met a lot of kind of what I was hoping. Like when we talked about him for the preview, when I said 200 proof player for Grant Wells, a lot of the numbers he ended up with were what I said, actually, what I was hoping for. I said maybe around 65% completion, 20 to 30s around there. I said it'll hopefully 250 to 300 or something like that. He threw for 333. Now, a couple of touchdowns didn't work out, but that's I mean, let's be honest, if they really wanted him to have all those touchdowns, they would have just let him keep throwing the ball in the red zone, but it wasn't what they needed to do. They needed to run the ball in. That's what they did. So it doesn't, I mean, you could get, if you wanted to, give him a couple of touchdowns with an asterisk there, you could, because he set those up. But, I mean, a couple interceptions. The first one was off of Gamage's hands. It was a little bit behind him, like if you watch the replay, but like it still could have been caught. And then the second pick was just totally right in the numbers, just a flat drop. It just bounced out. I mean, there's nothing else you can say about that. The QBR, like you said, 61.5 is pretty good. So Grant Wells really did play well. I said this was a very important game for him, and he played well, I thought. Got a little squirrely a couple times there in the second quarter. You could tell he did. I mean, a couple throws across his body. I was just like, what is this guy doing right now? A couple of things like that. But for the most part, he played really well. I mean, if he would have just, if Gamage would have made that one catch or maybe even both catches, and he would have thrown a couple touchdowns, we could have been in an A+ range right here. But because of that, it's a B+, which is still a good game.
Yeah, he had to rely on Talik Keaton to knock a ball down from being potentially intercepted once. Yeah. Missed a wide open Xavier Gaines on what would have been a sure touchdown pass. But hey, it's, these are the little things that you would like to think will get ironed out. This is a week 1 type deal. I mean, he was 1 or 2 plays from, 400 yards and a couple touchdowns.
Yeah.
And a couple more plays from no interceptions. So, 1 or 2 plays here and there could have really changed the complexion of this game for not only the Herd score, but Grant Wells, personally. Offensively as a whole, let me read back some of these points again. 464 yards, 49 points in under 19 minutes, 6 rushing touchdowns. Holy moly. What about this offense?
Yeah, I mean, you got to give it an A. I mean, if you when you score 49 points, I don't see how it's possible to give it anything less than an A. I mean, this is an A game if I've ever seen it. I mean, when you score 49 points on the board, I mean, 464 total yards is nothing to sneeze at. 363 passing. I mean, yeah, they ran the ball. They ran the ball well. Like, let's be honest, they did, but they didn't rely on it as much as most people thought they would have. And like, they really only used it. Not only used it, but they used it primarily in the red zone. And that's why the numbers aren't as big. But the line of scrimmage, they dominated the line of scrimmage, both sides. So don't make no mistake about that. And I mean, they did have the 3 turnovers. Got loose with the ball a couple of times. Ball security is definitely going to be an issue. Well, not an issue. It's definitely going to be something they focus on. Trying to get better. I love the tempo that they use. Like we said, the 6 rushing touchdowns is nuts. They haven't had. I think I saw the stat the last time they had that many rushing touchdowns was like 2012 against Rice. I think it was like a 54-51 double overtime game. It was crazy. So offense was really good here. I mean, you couldn't have put it this way. They more than exceeded my expectations of what I thought they would do in game 1. So if just by that metric alone, it's definitely an A for sure.
Yeah, the one thing you would like to see more of maybe is an increased, team rushing total. I mean, only 101 yards, but it's hard to argue against 6 touchdowns on the ground out of 100 yards.
Yeah.
Defensively, I mean, I don't even have to read the stats anymore. All these plays, impact plays, tackles for loss, 9 quarterback sacks, 2 interceptions. I mean, the impact plays were there across the board for a lot of guys. And I'm going to say it again, Eli Neal out of the gate, 3 sacks. Good Lord. What about this defense, Trace?
Yeah, I give defense another A. I mean, they played absolutely lights out. Just a phenomenal performance. I mean, we've said it already numerous times. When you're on the field for over 41 minutes and you only give up 7 points, like that just doesn't happen. Like that, I would venture to say, like if you give that exact same situation 10 different times, that's maybe the only time that happens like that. I mean, 7 points, that's crazy. Yeah. And and people will look at the total yards they gave up, 398 and 337 on the ground. But I mean, like you said, they scored 7 points. They shut them down. They thwarted everything they tried to do in the red zone. They were on the field too long. If they were, if you cut that time of possession in half, Navy probably only has maybe 200 total yards, if that. I mean, it was solely just because of the situation they were in. It wasn't because they weren't playing exceptionally well, because they were. 76 rushing attempts. I mean, that alone is going to lead to some yards. They made some big stops. They were on the field too long. Couple interceptions, which were nice. The one interception by Gilmore stopped that drive cold. Stopped it dead in its tracks. So defense, this was a phenomenal performance in my opinion. I mean, especially against a team that's going to be very methodical, control the time of possession, just make you just go crazy defensively because you got to have a million eyes in your head just to know where the ball is going to end up. So the defense I thought couldn't have played a whole lot better than they did. So I'll give them an A. And the 9 sacks. Are you serious? 9 sacks. So
yeah, you can tell that this Marshall defensive line is going to be as advertised, as formidable as we thought they would be. And I said several times during the course of the game that the Navy offensive line just had no answer for them. I mean, none. They could not do anything with them. Special teams, you block a punt, you block a kick, and perfect on extra points. Lefevre has a pretty solid punting average. There's nothing really to write home about kick returns or or punt returns. I mean, I think Sheldon Evans had a pretty nice kick return, but other than that, I mean, the money is right there in the block kicks. So special teams, what do you got?
I gave them an A. I thought they were really good overall. I mean, a lot of the aspects of the special teams really didn't get a chance to do anything, like you said. But, I mean, Evans did have a 36-yard kick return. That's always a good thing. 7-7 on extra points. That's good. Surprised Chuchi wasn't out there, but, homeboy did his thing out there. So good for him. 47.7 yards per punt. Now, that's pretty daggone good by old Robert. We got to give that man some credit on that one. And that one punt he had, it was I think it ended up being a 54-yarder or something like that. And, it was so close to getting blocked, and I didn't think it had a chance in the world. That thing just launched. I mean, he really did have a good game punting. He didn't have to punt a whole lot, but when he did, he made it count. And like you said, I mean, blocking a punt and a field goal, I mean, that's huge for special teams. That totally, changed the whole fortune of those drives. And, that obviously took 3 points away from Navy that they could have had, and Marshall's offense got the ball back. And then later on, I can't remember if they scored off of the block punt or not, but I think they did. So either way, I mean, special teams were doing their thing out there. I mean, they didn't have to try. They didn't try any field goals, but everything else was pretty flawless. So I'll give them an A.
Yeah, I mean, no arguments here. Here's the big one: it's the coaching staff, right? This is what the folks want to hear about. Game 1 of the Huff era, a whole new coaching staff outside of Tim Cramsey, which we already talked about, did a phenomenal job. What do you got for these coaches?
I think you got to give them an A+. I think you got to give them an A+. I mean, there's a lot of little storylines involved in this game. I mean, right off the bat, it was the first game of the year. It was on the road. It was a head coach making his first ever game as a head coach in college or at any level, and they come out and play extremely well. I mean, you can't overstate that. I mean, that's got to be the focal point here. I mean, the aggression that they played with offensively, they were the whole philosophy that Huff has of not just trying to sit on the lead. We talked about that. That's extremely impressive. Cramsey did call a great game. And I think now maybe that Huff is here, that maybe the offense, Cramsey will be able to do a little bit more with it. Seems like that might be where we're trending there. The offensive tempo we've mentioned several times. You got to love that. Defensively, they defended a triple option really well. I mean, you can't deny that. I thought they did really well against that. They came out fast. I said that they needed to establish themselves early. They did. First play of the game, almost 50 yards, and they were up 14-0 before you could blink, basically. So I mean, you can't start much better than that. And they kept their foot on the gas the whole game. They didn't let them. That's what like Steven said earlier. It's like with Marshall in the years past, they'd put up maybe 28 or 27 or 31 points in the first half. They scored like 7 in the second half, or like 3. And they would just kind of coast. They didn't coast here.
We said it many times. They'd start playing the clock game midway through the third quarter, and it came back to bite many, many times.
Yes, and whether or not you like that or not, you like maybe throwing the ball as much as they did with a big lead. You cannot take away Huff or Cramsey or Huff, I guess. really sticking to his guns. You got to respect that because fans have been clamoring for that type of aggressiveness for years. So I think you got to give the coaching an A+, given all the circumstances involved there.
Let me take you back to a comment that we heard early on when Charles Huff was hired. And it was something to the effect of, we want teams to say, don't put those guys on the schedule anymore.
We hate playing them. Yeah,
you're right. That's what I feel like the point was trying to be. I feel like it was like, okay, we don't want to play those guys anymore. They beat us up offensively. They beat us up defensively. They beat us up in special teams. Like, enough. So great effort overall from these guys. I know they got to be stoked. I'm happy for them. Great. Overall, what do you got?
Overall, A. I mean, no doubt it's an A game. Total team effort. I mean, every facet of the game played really well for the most part. I mean, really the only thing that you can take away from this game that isn't the most positive is just the ball security issue, really. And they only lost, I mean, as far as the fumbles, only lost one. So, I mean, they got lucky, and you can't put the ball on the ground 4 times and expect to get them all back. But, like, I think that is this – I tweeted it to you earlier. Like, I think that's more just an issue of it being the first game, trying to adjust to a new style of offense and a new tempo and, just trying to get all your ducks in a row. And it's the first game. I mean, it's not like it's week 12 and they're trying to win the East or something. I mean, it's just the first game against a team they're better than. So you can afford to do that, and that will definitely be something they focus on heavily in practice coming up, I'm sure. So, yeah, I mean, I think you got to give them an A. I thought it was a really, really good performance. You got to be – I mean, it was much better than I thought it would be. And most of the fans that I've seen that talked about the game on Twitter with predictions and stuff didn't see a 49-7 game coming. So, big shout-out to the Herd on this one, and especially Huff in his first game as head coach, his first win. That's always exciting. So,
man, Vegas is rarely this wrong, and boy, were they wrong. I saw the spread. It was as close as 2.5 leading in, and then it went back up to 3, and then you come and it's like a 42-point. Vegas is never this wrong, and boy, man, they were wrong on this. I hope people took the over and took the spread because you made some money on that one. So Trace, here's the question, and Steve, since you're over there and you've been awful quiet, I'm going to get your take also on this because you were following along. You've heard us talk for the last half an hour about this game and this team and what went on. And even though you didn't see it live, I'm sure you've gotten an idea of, kind of what it looked like. Trace, here's the big question. What do we know about the Herd after one game?
Well, that's a good question because it's very hard to know a lot about a team after one game. But I think one thing you got to say, about this team is their mindset and their style is going to be a lot different than it has been. I think they're playing with more, more juice, more swagger, and I think that was a big thing that people were talking about that Huff is going to bring to the team. And I think they have that. I mean, they are, all players are going to have an edge to them to an extent. You're going to play with a little chip on their shoulder and stuff, but it seems like this team is going to have a little different vibe going around it. And it's showing already with how the offense is running. I really think that it's going to be a very good thing for the remainder of the season, and just the future of Huff as head coach in general. Is you got to have that swagger about Chip, and the X's and O's are going to have to that'll have to fall in place as well, and like certain things here and there. But you have to go in with your mindset being a little different than it has been, in my opinion. And I think that's a good sign that they've started out this high of a note.
Well, we've said this before, and I think the difference is that we're seeing a hungry coach again, not one that has already won some championships, won some big games, won some bowl games, and he's kind of got everything put in place that he wants put in place, and he's not as hungry to deviate from what he knows works. Whereas Huff is just hungry. He wants to prove himself. He wants to prove that he was the right guy for the job. He just wants to win. He's a competitor. Right. And I think what we know now, at least after one game, is that Marshall is as advertised. That's the best thing I can say about them. We were sold a bill of goods, and it's been delivered after 1 week. Steve, from a competitor's standpoint, from somebody on the opposite side, looking at this Herd team, based on what you saw, what you've heard us say, and some of the stats and things we've been showing around, what do you think that you know about this Herd team based on what you thought you knew coming in?
Well, the defense is obviously sound and disciplined. Anytime you can hold that kind of offensive attack to 7 points over a 60-minute ball game when you're on the field for 2/3 of the game, that's obviously a very solid defense. And then offensively, it's nice to see him kind of get back in a groove. I know last year kind of tailed off and wasn't as consistent offensively. Maybe Grant Wells got some mojo back. He got swagger back, even though he wasn't putting balls in the end zone. If you're moving between the 20s, that's pretty good, as long as they're still getting 6 on the board at the end of those drives. So overall, it looked like a complete game for them. All 3 phases seem to be very successful. So it's really, sounds like it's hard to complain about that type of game with a new coaching staff and not knowing what to expect coming in. So good things on the horizon. It sounds like in the end of the year could be really exciting.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I know you're curbing your enthusiasm, because really, what enthusiasm do you have for a Marshall team? But we look forward to the excitement of the potential just lights out matchup at the end of the year based on what we've seen in week 1 for both of these teams. So we're going to talk about the Tops and UT Martin here on the other side of this break. But good, congratulations to the Herd. Congratulations to Coach Huff and his entire coaching staff, these guys that have prepared, and these players that have worked their asses off to go up to Annapolis, Maryland and put on a show this week, and it worked out the way they would want to. Trace, are you going to be able to stay around for the remainder of this episode, or do I need to go ahead and get some final thoughts for you right now?
I should be good.
Okay, well then we won't. If you happen to have to leave, then that's going to be a bummer, because I'm sure you got some final thoughts. But I'm going to tell you now, we got some equally impressive stats to talk about for Western Kentucky against UT Martin. So hang with us on the other side of this break. It's the drubbing of the Skyhawks. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast.
Play action. They'll look to Simon. Simon, can he get in? He fights his way in the end zone for his 2nd touchdown catch of the night. And the 7th touchdown pass for Zappe that ties his career high against Texas Southern 2 years ago.
Well, it's time for the other side of this rivalry. We welcomed in UT Martin to the house to take on Western Kentucky in week 1. In what was also billed as a brand new everything. Tops hit the portal like nobody hit the portal this offseason, and they made a lot of changes at a lot of places, primarily on offense. And Steve, they took a lot of flack on social media over bringing in all these Houston Baptist guys, talking about like, oh, Western's got an FCS offense and blah, 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 blah. And, we tried to tell people they're going to be good. Don't let these former schools or conference affiliations, don't let it fool you. Ballers ball, period. Don't matter who they play for. And Western Kentucky came out and dazzled to the tune of 59-21 over UT Martin in the whiteout at home. They looked really, really, really good on offense. They looked pretty good on defense. So Toppers are 1-0. I can safely say that we put the struggle with the FCS teams to bed early on. That was just an offensive outpouring. Like, I guess we call you Nostradamus for a reason. You kept saying, oh, I got the feeling it's Mike White and his debut against Rice, and it's going to be a big, 300-400 yard game and 5 touchdowns. Well, mister, you didn't see 7 touchdowns coming, did you? I don't think anybody did. But it's pretty dope. 587 yards total offense for Western Kentucky. They did allow 396 yards to UT Martin. Time of possession, the Skyhawks actually win the time of possession battle 33 minutes, 30 seconds to 26 minutes, 30 seconds over the Tops. Toppers edge in first downs 25-22, and Western wins the turnover battle 2-1. Just quick notes from me before we get into your thoughts on the game. My bullet points I wrote down, Zappe absolutely delivered. He delivered. He was as advertised. He was what folks were hoping to see in a Topper uniform. The first time we've seen a debut like this since Mike White came in. And I told you before, the difference was that Mike White came in with relatively no stats. So if he would have came out and had a so-so game, nobody would have really batted an eye. Whereas Zappe came in with all these career passing yards. They transferred in all these guys with all these yards and touchdowns to bolster the wide receiver core. Offensive coordinators over as well. All this familiarity was there. So there was a little bit more pressure on Bailey Zappe to deliver. And boy, did he ever. He delivered a single game Houchin Smith Stadium touchdown record, 7 passing touchdowns. There have been some great passers come through, but he's the guy that does that. I think we can put the naysaying to this quote unquote FCS offense out to pasture. If you want to downplay 59 points, 400 plus yards passing, 7 touchdowns, then go ahead and downplay it. But I think we can put that to bed. Defensively, this is where it kind of hiccups for me a little bit. I saw some trends there that I wasn't blown away by, but still a very strong unit overall. So what do you think? UT Martin comes to town. You were at the game. Tops took no prisoners. They lit the scoreboard up like everybody wanted to see. They put the yards up like everybody wanted to see. What about that hometown squad, Western Kentucky Hilltopper, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, game 1, back to full capacity, the whiteout. I mean, just the total game environment was just amazing. I mean, tailgating was packed out all through the Valley area. In front of Preston, South Lawn was packed. The RV area was packed. It just felt like football was back. And then when you actually get inside the game, I don't know what was announced. It wasn't a huge crowd. It wasn't almost a sellout by any means, but the new side of the stadium was pretty much full. The student section berm was full. The tent area, the Hank Wilson zone behind the end zone was full. So just the overall environment of the game, for a Thursday night game, that I was very pleased with the attendance. Definitely football's back. And then, all the guys we brought in and just all the weapons we've talked about the entire offseason. I'm going to steal a line from basketball season. I used to say Def Texas and Charles Bassey Conference Player of the Week. Well, now it's Def Texas and Bailey Zappa Offensive Player of the Week, because that boy can sling it, and he has weapons, total control of that offense. There's just so many plays that you could tell they broke down, but then he's communicating with his receivers, just a little hand motion. Hey, slide over to this gap, bam, hit them right inside, using all the space on the field, giving receivers room to run after catches. I mean, it was just a beautiful thing to see. It started off a little slower than we all wanted. First 2 drives, we didn't score. UT Martin did go down and score on their first drive, so it was 7-0 hole early. And I know everybody in stands was going, holy, here we go again. But we got those jitters out. Zappe had a long ball down the sideline that was intercepted. He took total blame for that after the game. If you watch the media availability after the game, he said, I took a shot. I left it inside where the defender could get to it, and he made a play. I'll go back, I'll watch the film, I'll get better. Much respect for the conference player of the week, the offensive player of the week, because he definitely owned that one. But just for game 1, you got to be pleased. And you can say it was an FCS opponent, but, I mean, if we got an FCS offense, we look pretty good against our own kind, I guess. But I think that was really just kind of hopefully the tip of the iceberg. I think there's a lot more where that came from. I definitely think there's still areas to improve and wrinkles to iron out. And it's going to be a lot of fun. Let's go buy more fireworks.
Well, I mean, a couple house cleaning things here. You talk about you're not sure what the attendance was. 16,236 at the game, 73% capacity of the stadium. Not bad for a Thursday night game. Remember, folks, this is not a Saturday night game. So people have to go to work. Kids got to go to school. There's just people that have circumstances that can't allow them to come to the game. So to have that on a Thursday night, that's pretty solid for a showing. And I'm sure there were also more fans that wanted to play wait and see for a game just to see if, they feel like now it's worth spending their money on. Well, we've been trying to tell you. You should get on the train early because this is going to be a fun one. Also, I hope you took the over and I hope you took the line on the game. Tops were minus 24 and they covered. And the over-under was 59 and the Tops got a push on that by themselves. So the over-under definitely went over. I hope you took the over. I hope you took the line. You'd have made a killing as well. If you'd have taken the over and the line on both these games this week, you'd have got yourself a good little chunk of money. The Toppers scored in every quarter, Steve, so they really didn't just let up either. Even when they put in their backups, second string quarterback, whatever, found the end zone again. But let's talk about some stats because it's pretty impressive. If we're going to go ahead and call it now, death taxes and the Bailey Zappi Player of the Week award, then even though Rasheen Ali has a 4-touchdown game for Marshall. Sorry, man, that ain't enough this week. Bailey Zappi, 28 of 35, 424 yards, 7 touchdown passes, 1 interception, 2 carries on the ground for another 24 yards, 92.6 overall quarterback rating. Phenomenal debut. I mentioned it before. Houghton Smith Stadium single game touchdown passing record. Not Brandon Doughty, not Mike White. It's Bailey Zappi in his debut, no less, holding that record. Carson Baker in relief duty. Hey, 1 of 1, 54 yards and a touchdown. Perfect on the quarterback rating. Kyle Robichaux from the ground, a guy we really didn't talk about that much in position group breakdowns, coming out of nowhere, but surprising us to lead the way for the Tops. 9 carries, 44 yards, almost 5 yards a carry. The guy you are pretty high on, of course, Adam Cofield, 10 carries for 40 yards. So you got 2 topper backs with at least 4 yards per carry. You got to like that. Then we get into these crazy receiving stats. Jareth Stearns, one of the guys that comes over with Bailey Zappi from Houston Baptist, leads the way for the Tops. 7 catches, 107 yards, 15.3 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns. Dawood Davis, the transfer from Oregon, 2 catches, 83 yards and a touchdown. Good for 41.5 yards per catch. Joshua Simon, who really didn't get involved in the game until kind of late in the game, but still had an impressive showing. 3 catches, 73 yards, 2 touchdowns, 24.3 yards per catch. Craig Burt, 2 catches, 68 yards and a touchdown, 34 yards per catch. Mitchell Tinsley, 5 catches, 58 yards and a touchdown, 11 yards per catch. And Malachi Corley, 5 catches for 51 yards and a touchdown, 10.2 yards per catch. Holy crap. Not just 7 touchdowns for Zappi, 8 overall for the team, but they go to 6 different receivers. And on top of all that, no sacks allowed by this offensive line. Pretty impressive stuff. Steve, come on back in. Let's talk about this offensive outpouring.
Yeah, is that good? Yeah. We've kind of talked this ad nauseum in the position group previews, just depth and just how many bodies we had and how many playmakers we had. And game 1 just truly revealed that. And it really kind of took me back to this guy. I know you can't see him, but kind of took me back to those Brahms squad days. Just because he was always spreading the ball around. He was always finding playmakers and people were getting open and putting them in position to succeed. And then, kind of the unsung hero, the big question mark to everybody, myself included, was that offensive line. It really kind of all the pressure was on them to allow the time for plays to develop and things to happen. Blocking has to be there, spacing, etc., for all that offensive execution. And for those guys to allow 0 sacks, I think they had, maybe 1, maybe 2 quarterback hurries. Kept Zappi clean, kept Carson clean when he was in the game. So, those guys just definitely had a great game. Called a lesser opponent, call it whatever you want. It was a good game to get that under their belts and get that game experience for all 5 of them as a unit playing together. Just just an amazing, just all around offensive effort. Just really, really, really good, and obviously really happy about it.
Yeah, you mentioned that. I was looking at it here in real time while you brought it up. Just one quarterback hurry for the entire UT Martin team. So the offensive line did an outstanding job keeping those guys away from their quarterback. And you could tell that even, like you said, even when things didn't go as planned, the command of the offense to just throw a hand up to guide a guy here into open space to make something out of what broke down and was going to turn into nothing, or may have been nothing in seasons past. We might be on to something special here. It's looks like it's fun times ahead in Bowling Green, Kentucky again. If we get any sort of semblance of 2014, 15, 16 Western Kentucky offense, then this is going to be a fun season. So, look, I'm quick to muting the mic on me today, but I'm going to keep you talking. So I got to know, what do we know now about this offense after a week? Yeah, it's UT Martin. If you want to downplay it, that's fine. If you're a half empty, half full type, whatever, what do you think we know about this offense after 1 week?
I mean, I think a lot of the preseason predictions of Zappe being that QB1 in the conference, I think, are warranted. You know, I think he definitely showed that he's got an arm, 80% completions, one interception that he took complete ownership of, and I don't have a doubt that he'll clean that up going forward. Not saying he won't have any more, but you know, he knows when he made that mistake, and I said it since the spring game. He looked so calm in the pocket. I mean, I've never seen any quarterback in our stadium that looks that calm back there, not happy feet. He's just gliding back there, going through his reads, his progression. So, I mean, what we know is this offense definitely has a chance to be one of the top scoring in our conference. You know, we're going to break that 30-point barrier, you know, pretty much every game. And we have a realistic shot of being one of the top scoring offenses in the nation, you know, a la 2014, 15, 16. They're really good. There's a lot of weapons, and there's still guys that we didn't even see. I don't even think Jamal Carruthers played in the game, and I was barking for him. I was like, please put Carruthers in, because Cofield, he was that thunder guy. He was thunder, and you kind of see by stats. And Robichaux had a good game, but I really wanted to see Carruthers get in there, that hometown kid, and see what he could do. But there were still several other guys that, you know, we haven't even talked about Ben Ratzlaff. He had a good game. Craig Burt had a really good game. He had another Moss catch. I don't know if you've seen the video of it, but dude, he's ridiculous. He's ridiculous. But I think the offense is just every bit of as advertised. And, you know, when I had the gut feeling of it's going to be Mike White 2016, shiny new toy, you know, we're going to put it to the floor and just see what happens. We started off slow, you know, those first two possessions, no points. It is what it is. Then we came out, scored 3 times in a row, took the lead, let there be no doubt of who we are and what we're going to do. And that's going to be move the ball, spread it around, and put a lot of points on the board. So that's absolutely what we know.
11. I'm trying to count real quick. It's either 11 or 12. I was trying to do it real fast before you were done talking. Different receivers caught a pass in the game. And you're talking about guys that you plenty of other weapons that we didn't get to see. Only a rush by 4 or 5 different guys, one of which was Bailey Zappe, and another was a receiver, Malachi Corley. So only 3 running backs took a snap or took a rushing attempt. Of course, Kai Robichaux, Adam Cofield, and Jakari Moses had 2 carries. So you still got another weapon over there, Carruthers, that you like to see worked in. But you got time, you know. I mean, this is a good problem to have. Let's just see if everybody stays happy and you know, the thing keeps rolling. Let's talk about defense now, leading the way for the Tops. This is the trend that I was hoping to see reversed. And in week 1, it doesn't make me feel great that it was against a team like UT Martin. And still we see the top 3 tacklers being defensive backs. Antoine Kincaid leading the way, 7 tackles, 5 of those solo. AJ Brathwaite, 5 tackles, 4 of those solo. Davion Williams, 5 tackles, 4 solo. Then you get down to a defensive end, Jacques Evans, 5 tackles, 1 solo. And then finally you get to a linebacker with 4 tackles, 2 solo, Malik Staples, 5th leading tackler on the team. We were really hoping to see a lot more of the defensive line and linebackers sucking up a lot of those tackles and plays. So, I can't say that I paid too close of attention. I was trying to see what I could see when I could. I just didn't have the ability to be free all evening to watch the game like I was today watching the Marshall game. But to look at these defensive stats and to see the top 3 guys being defensive backs is just not something I was expecting to see. Just 1 sack for the Tops as a team. Michael Pitts, 1 interception. Miguel Edwards. Both those guys came over from the via the portal this year. So the impact plays for the team, 5 tackles for loss, just the 1 sack, 3 quarterback hurries, and then, of course, an interception. I think there's also a fumble recovery by Will Ignont in the game. So, the impact plays are kind of at a minimum, something we'd like to see a little bit more of course. I'm not trying to say this defense is downtrodden at all or anything like that, but I just expected a little bit more of a dominating defensive performance against this team, and I didn't see that. So hopefully that comes together a little bit. But what do you got? What did you see from your vantage point? I mean, you were there. You were seeing things, obviously, that I didn't see. The bulk of what I'm deducing is coming from the stats on the sheet here. So what did you see from this defense?
I know early, as they marched down the field and scored first on us, they had a mobile quarterback, and that just always gives us fits. I don't know what it is about, but mobile quarterback just befuddle us for some reason. He could move and extend plays with his legs, and they had a pretty good running back. I know they had some guys from the portal. I don't know. I know the quarterback was from Tulane. I'm not sure about the running back, but those guys were good offensive players. Seemed like early we were trying to make a lot of arm tackles, not trying to, wrap up, maybe trying to strip the ball, bring people down. Then after kind of that first score, we really turned into a lot of bend, don't break. And we were really rotating a lot of guys in. We were constantly, and that was on both sides of the ball, not just defense. We were rotating a lot of guys in the entire game, which, I was, you're kind of, you want to play with tempo in your offense, but we were just subbing 2-3 guys constantly coming in, and that's building depth. Obviously you want to see a little bit more stopping the run. But at the end of the day, we held them to 21 points. We got the victory. Bend don't break will work a lot of times if you can hold people between the 20s. And for the most part, that's what we did. It was a new, a new defensive staff in theory. It was Mo Crump's first game as the guy calling the plays and what they were doing on the field. And a lot of new guys getting their first rep and first run. So, you always expect to see some hiccups, and there's going to be a lot of cleanup, a lot of film review, and opportunities that they're going to see that, hey, I could have been here, I could have been there, and made a better play on the ball, their angle, whatever it was. But overall, I was pleased. Only giving up 21 points. I'm going to take that in a lot of ball games, especially just as fast as we were scoring. Once we got clicking, we were just getting down the field, scoring, and defense coming right back on the field. So definitely some area for improvement there, mainly in tackling for me, just clean, solid tackling. But overall, I was okay. I was pleased with defense. I wasn't, I'm not disheartened or worried about that side of the ball at all, even though it may truly be the bigger question mark. But we did say that kind of in the season preview that, maybe for once we're going to lean on the offense instead of leaning on the defense. So I think we kind of saw what we expected. They didn't shine. They weren't the star of the show, but they don't need to be.
Yeah. If you're going to score 59 or close to it every game, who gives a flip if you give up 21 or 28 a game? It doesn't really matter. I mean, you can still double up your opponent giving up 30. I mean, I think you'll take that. If you got to get in a shootout every week to win games, I like your chances. I mean, if you got a quarterback that's got a command of the offense the way that this one does, and all of these weapons, I mean, I don't think I've written down if I've ever written down this many receivers in a Western Kentucky recap, it's been years that I've had to do that. And it doesn't matter if it's one catch, two catch here, but if everyone also has a touchdown, that's all that really matters. You can't guard everybody all the time. So look, let's talk about special teams real quick. Your guy, Braden Narveson, 1 of 1 on field goals, got him a little chip shot from 30, perfect on extra points, 8 of 8. And perhaps one of the most impressive stats of the night is that power leg from down under, John Haggerty, only had to punt one time, and it went for 44 yards. So I think you'll take only having to punt one time in a game as well. Let's kind of move on and get your grades for, this game. I mean, we've talked about a lot of it, but Jiminy Christmas, this was a really fun one that Topper fans just needed, I think. One that they just needed. So what is your grade for that's probably the most easy slam dunk question of all time. What is your quarterback grade for week 1?
Yeah, this is like the Dwayne Wade to LeBron James meme. Just, I'm going to slam this one for an A+. I mean, Conference USA Offensive Player of the Week, Bailey Zappa showed out, and Death Taxes and Bailey Zappa. He's the man. Got to give that man an A. And even the backup, he came in and slung a touchdown as well. So quarterback, Bailey Zappa, everybody gets an A.
Everybody gets an A. What a great effort from the quarterback unit. I mean, we were talking about for the Herd, Luke Zaban getting the only passing touchdown, going 1 for 3. Well, your guy comes in and goes 1 for 1 with a longer touchdown pass. So A+ all the way around. Offensively as a whole, Steve, it's been a minute since the Tops have cracked 50, a real minute since they've pushed 60. What about this offense?
Yeah, and it's probably been a while since I've given them an A as well. So, I mean, just all around effort. Everybody did their job and made plays from the line to the quarterback to each of the skill positions, wide receivers, running backs. Everybody did what they need to do, and just, football was fun again. The environment was fun again. Really had been a long time since I had that much fun at a home football game. So definitely an A for the offense.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, if you've got it, when you get to the point to where you're splitting hairs, and you're like, well, I'd like to see this more, like to see that more, but hey, we put 59 on the board. I mean, that's the kind of things we like to talk about. If everything's going right, and we just want to see more good stuff. Defensively, what do you got for the Tops this week?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the side that probably has the most room for improvement in the 3 phases so far, after one game. I'd still give them a B- though. I'm not overly concerned with their performance, no matter whom that opponent was in game 1. I think there's going to be a lot to look at, clean up, and get better at, especially with a lot of new faces, a lot of guys getting their first meaningful game action, especially with the games that we have coming. I'm glad they were able to do that now, get those reps, and have the opportunity to come back and clean it up before we get into some, really heavy hitter games kind of coming up in the next few weeks.
Well, you beat me big time in the 200 proof player. I told you I needed to see it for a week before I could start leaning on the offense. And God, I didn't expect to see a stadium record in touchdown passes. So I fully expected, Malone and Jones to just feast all over this quarterback, and I didn't see that to the tune of the way I wanted to see it, but that's okay. I don't think this unit is like the Achilles heel of this team. I just think they're going to it'll take them a little while to find their identity of who they are, who's going to be the guys. So if it's another year of the secondary leading the way in tackles, then that's what it is. But if we can outscore an opponent 2-1, 3-1, well, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, special teams wise, what do you got for the Tops? You don't miss a kick. You only punt once. Return game's okay. Yeah. What do you got for the special teams?
Legatron and Legatron Jr. Had good games. So the Boot and Legatron, they did their jobs. They did what they were supposed to do. Return game, nothing stood out to me as all it was immaculate or amazing. But mainly just focusing on the guys kicking, did their job. They were perfect, for the night. So I'm going to give those guys an A.
Yeah. Hard to argue against that when you don't miss a kick. Coaching, look, man, game 1 for what was a very, very change-filled offseason. Not nearly as many questions for this Western Kentucky coaching staff as we see with the Marshall coaching staff. but still a myriad of questions that needed to be answered. And I think a lot of those questions were answered in this game. So what do you got for the coaching staff in week 1?
I thought it was interesting that Kitley was on the sideline. He wasn't up in the press box. I don't think that's a normal thing for an offensive coordinator, but he's at the same time, he's almost 7 foot tall, so he can see a lot of stuff from his vantage point along the sideline. So I guess Ellis was up in the box and relaying plays and all that fun stuff. But just offensively, I mean, or coaching wise, a lot of shakeups were made, and a lot of shakeups were made because of deficiencies we had scoring and yards last year. And now we see that those have paid off. Immediately game 1, points on the board, fireworks going off, just a lot of fun. So coaching, just all around, they get an A. We won the ball game. We won it convincingly. A lot of people got to play. There were no just head scratching moments of what in the world are we doing? So yeah, it's hard to look any other way than an A for the entire coaching staff.
Yeah, like I'm saying, man. I mean, answered all the questions, and this is something that I've credited Helton with for a number of years. When he sees a deficiency, he makes a change. He doesn't wait and see if it gets better on its own. He's very proactive in making this team better, and now we're starting to see the fruits of some of that labor. So overall, Tops put out an outstanding offensive performance and enough of a defensive performance to make a statement. Special teams was solid. Overall, what do you got for these guys?
Yeah, I mean, overall, it's an A. I mean, it was a beautiful win. The slow start, it happened. It's jitters for a lot of people first game. Playing a little tight. There was an interception early. Cleaned it up immediately. Then left no doubt the rest of the way. Into the second quarter, pulled away, and it was never in question, just like it had been the last several years. And we said that in the preview. The problem was letting those teams hang around. We didn't do that. We opened up the lead. Just a lot of fun. I mean, the game was just entirely fun. And I think there's going to be a lot more of that at the house. So definitely an A overall.
Yeah. What more do you need to see? You said if you sat at home and played wait and see for game 2, you missed a stadium record, and a very exciting offense. So this is the big question, of course, and Trace has unfortunately had to log off, so we're going to miss out on final thoughts for Trace this week, and he also doesn't get to chime in on this one. But what do we know now about Western Kentucky after one game?
We know that we have a confident gunslinger, the guy pulling the trigger, leading the offense. He has complete command and control of it. Every nuance, every wrinkle, every player, where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to be doing. Saw a couple of times where he went to a hard cadence, threw some offsides, and really used that free play. Kind of, you'll appreciate this. Kind of very Brett Favre-like. When that free play happened, he, those outside guys, he wanted them to go. We're slinging this down the field. Kind of really like that about him. And then even when those plays broke down, just moving people around, finding plays, making something out of nothing, and then just constantly finding players in space. I mean, it was a beautiful game. It really was great. The offense is going to be, what sells the ticket this year. The offense is going to win us a lot of games. It may bail us out some games because we might just have more firepower than other teams. The defense just needs to do what they need to do. Bend, don't break. That might be, that might become a theme. That might become a talking point. Bend, don't break. If they get down the field, that's fine, but get off the field on third down at some point. Get the ball back to number 4 because he's going to go make a play. So what we know is it's going to be a fun year. Just health willing. It'll take a lot of health problems for this offense to slow down because I think even the backup showed he can come in, he can sling it a little bit too. So we're going to be fun. We better be stocked up on fireworks. I hope we bought a lot on the 5th of July when they're half price because, Lord, we finna need them.
Yeah, they're definitely not on sale in Bowling Green, Kentucky or the surrounding metro area anymore. Prices shot up after they saw the Toppers put almost a 60 piece on the scoreboard. But man, we talked about in the season predictions, does Western Kentucky have the ability to win a conference title this year? Yes. Will they? We weren't sure. And we've never been those guys that just 100% throw the cart in front of the horse and go, oh, this is it. It's a wrap. They're going to win it all now. But if you don't feel better about this team than you did just a week ago, then I don't know what team you watched, because there were so many things that we needed to see happen that happened. And yeah, there's going to be tougher teams on the schedule, but there's just so much to be said for a quarterback that has a command of the offense as well as Zappe has of this one. That can bail you out of so many situations when you can just see something and make a real-time adjustment to turn something out of or make something out of nothing. Tops are in a very unique position here. They are a flat contender, and there's just no two ways around it. Let's get some final thoughts from you, and we'll get out of here this week. We'll have preview episodes coming later in the week. Of course, we will go ahead and say that Western Kentucky has to play Army this week, who had a big win this weekend. So they looked pretty good. It's not going to be an easy game up in West Point. Of course, it'll be September 11th weekend. So we know that'll probably have something special going on up there. But look, let's get some final thoughts right now. Let's close out this week 1-0. Got to feel good. What you got?
Well, I want to touch on some comments that Zappe made. I don't remember if it was leading up to the game in media availability or after the game. But people were throwing his name around with Brandon Dowdy, Mike White a lot. He's heard that a lot already. He kind of knows the history of, who he's being judged and compared against. And he made the direct comment in this. I loved it because it showed how much of a football junkie he is. He went back and was watching games from the Brom era. He watched Brandon Dowdy games. He watched Mike White games. He watched Ty Story games. So this guy is just a student of the game, soaking it all in. And I guarantee you, I don't know it. I don't know him or Kitley, Brian Ellis, Helton, any of those guys. But I guarantee you, when he was watching those games in that film, I guarantee you he saw something and said, I like that. Yeah. Can we bring that and plug it into our package? Just because he seems like that kind of guy that's such a perfectionist and loves, he loves to put points on the board. He wants to do that. So when you have that kind of guy, that kind of leader who just, isn't just here just to play and try to make a paycheck, come next year, he's kind of showing that he's a football junkie. He's a player. He respects the tradition and the people that he's following in their footsteps. And doing that by researching and studying and getting to know, who am I being compared to? Whose records am I going to be threatening? And I love it. And when I heard it, I said, man, this is going to be a special year. That kid is special, great head on his shoulders, obviously a talented arm, and gives credit to others. If you saw the post game, he said, player of the game should be the offensive line. That front five was who did it. So he deflects that credit to other people. I mean, being in any workplace or any kind of environment like that, that kind of leader is going to get more people that want to tug with them, that want to pull the same direction. So, man, I really think he's going to be a special one. Game one is obviously kind of a sneak peek of what that might be, but Zappe is obviously a very high character guy, obviously a very talented guy. So, really, really, really excited for this season and whatever it may hold and unfold for us.
I have to be really honest, and now that we've done all the preseason hype and now I've seen a game, I was a little bit not concerned, but I was just like, man, I wonder if this is going to work to the level that we actually are talking about it being able to work. And it's kind of refreshing to see, man, this is like a really efficient offense out of the gate. And, you talked about that, if we have an ability to, keep the team from hanging around and you start slow, but once you establish a lead, that was it. It was all systems go and no slowing down. And, we talked about this a little bit when we were doing the Marshall recap. I mean, you're up big and you're still trying to force the issue of points. You know, people are going to have their feelings about that. And what I feel about that is there's a defense on the field that has a job. And if they can't stop you, too damn bad. You know, your job is to get in the end zone. You're not out there just to, you know, be somebody's buddy and like take it easy on you. It's like, hey, you guys are scholarship athletes as well. You're here to stop us from getting in the end zone. And if you can't do that, then we're going to continue to score points on you. And I feel the same way about, you know, Huff and his staff. And I feel that way about Helton and his staff. I mean, this game's about points. And it's especially at our level, when you're trying to constantly rise out of a much larger group, the group of five, so to speak, style points matter. You know, sexiness, whether you want to admit it, matters. And the more wow plays you can put on film throughout the course of a season, it helps rise the rankings. You know, it perks up those people that are extending bowl invites. Like, they all want the exciting team that's going to make their bowl game the marquee game for the, you know, the G5 or whatever. That stuff matters. And you know, you should want that to happen. If the music's too loud, then you're too old, you know, like, we're here to score. So I'm hoping this continues. I hope it's a take no prisoners attitude from both of these coaching staffs, both of these teams, all of these players, until we get down to late November, to where I really hope there's something on the line. If the season goes based on what we saw in week 1, holy crap, there's going to be a lot on the line, because there won't be too many L's between these teams, if any. But man, what a great weekend of games. I mean, you start the weekend on a Thursday night with a Western Kentucky win, and then Friday was kind of crappy, and then, for me anyway, and then Saturday I get to watch the Herd just dominate the Naval Academy. This is a great way to end the weekend. So I'm gearing up for a pretty exciting week next week. We'll talk about that more when we do previews. But for now, let's close the book on this week and just to soak it all in and enjoy victories for one week. It's been such a long time. We got, you know, live action, students, crowd, fans, tailgating, good people, good food, good brews, good football. Man, it's here. It's just glad. It's so therapeutic. I love it. Steve, take us out of here.
All right, go Tops.
Go Herds. It's the Moonshine Throwdown podcast. Later.